If that, we may get out at 20. We'll see. I'll start with this. I have Pastor Brian Van Eps here. He's the senior pastor at Big Sky Christian Fellowship in Big Sky, Montana. He's the founder and owner of Legacy Guides. I love interviewing pastors because I feel like I can just kind of wind you up and let you go.
Yeah, good.
But thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for
Brian.
having me.
This is great.
Thanks, Joe.
You've been in the area leading people for a very long time.
Yeah.
I want to start by asking you, how did you sort of discover that religion was your calling, was your jam?
Oh, man. Okay. So I'm a church brat, like a real church brat. Like my earliest memories are in the church. My dad was a youth pastor. My mom was a children's pastor. I remember running around stealing cookies from old ladies and, acting like I would stand next to the pastor with a suit on. I don't remember this, but this is imparted memory. You know what I mean? I'd stand next to the pastor at the end in the receiving line and thank everyone for coming. Like, that's just my jam, man.
Just at the end of the service.
Yeah. I just roll up next to Pastor Toonstra. Pastor Toonstra would get done with his sermon. He'd wear his 3-piece suit. So I got a 3-piece suit. And he'd walk out to the back and greet everybody. And they'd say, nice sermon, Pastor. And I'd stand right next to him and be like, have a great day. Have a great day.
You had already decided that was for you.
Yeah. I tried to run away from it for a while, but.
And what denomination was that?
That was a Christian, I believe a Christian Reformed Church, one of the two. They're like cousins of the Presbyterians.
I am turning you down, by the way.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, you said you wound me up, so here we go.
All right, and so that led directly to you going into theology, seminary, all of that, or was it kind of a circuitous path that got you?
Yeah, it was a bumpy road.
Okay,
as many pastors' kids tend to go down.
Did you get in trouble?
Not a ton.
Yeah.
I played basketball in high school at a pretty high level, and that ended up taking me to Los Angeles to play basketball at Whittier College. Then I went to a Christian school in Tennessee, Johnson University, a small Christian school. One of those, I was probably like the most moral person there. All right. And then one of those, I was the least moral person there. Does that make sense? Like
you got to do the full spectrum.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, in Tennessee, I was awful. No, I'm just kidding. In LA, I was really good.
You're great.
I was great
yeah.
in LA. Yeah, LA was not great for me, but I built my testimony.
Okay.
I built my story, and so
you have
then,
to stray from the path a little bit. Right?
Yeah.
It's important.
You have to check it out. So, I heard a pastor say, "If you're not sinning fun enough."
All right.
So you're not doing it right, something like that. But anyway, yeah. And then I went to Tennessee. That was a super strict school. Actually was asked to find another school, and I was like, that's the first thing we've agreed on. So then I ended up at a little school in Northwest Iowa, Dort University, which is based out of the Canons of Dort, which are where they solidified the 5 points of Calvinism.
Mm-hmm.
So
all sounds reformed.
Made up. Yeah. You had to read through Calvin's Institutes, Volume 1 and 2, as a theologian there. So
some serious work.
Yeah. So I went there, finished up my undergraduate degree there, met my wife there in Northwest Iowa, and
you guys met at Dort.
We met at Dort.
Okay.
There's a few people that have met there to get married. So.
Right. A lot of matches made in Dort.
A lot of Dutch matches made there.
Okay.
It's kind of a Dutch enclave. She's from Churchill, which is down here in the valley. It's just west of town. It's a farming town that's very Reformed and Dutch in heritage. They all came over with the Manhattan Malting Company. That's all kind of funny history over there. Manhattan is it's called Manhattan because there was a malting company in Manhattan, New York, that named it Manhattan because they were growing their barley there.
Yeah.
And so that attracted a bunch of folks to grow stuff. And so they are part of the potato farming group out there in Churchill, Montana. So we met.
Not even New Manhattan, just
No,
straight.
no.
We're gonna
just straight Manhattan.
call it the same thing. That way that you can still say made in Manhattan.
Well, there's Manhattan, Kansas. There's, I mean, if you
Yeah.
start thinking about it, there's a couple of Manhattans out there. So
they did a good job colonizing
That's right. That's
at
right.
that point.
That's right.
All right. So you go through seminary, you're trained, you end up in Montana, and now you have experience at not only the Big Sky Chapel at this micro church, but also you have preached at mega churches as well. Tell me about the different challenges between those two extremes.
Yeah, so roundabout way, we got back to Denver, where I'm from originally. And I went to Denver Seminary, where I did my master's work, and was working in a church that my family helped plant, which was like 100 people in a gymnasium when it originally started. I heard stories of my grandpa going through the white pages back in the day and opening the book and going, just going name by name, inviting people to church over the phone.
What?
Yeah, that's how they started the church.
Okay.
So he just called people up.
He robocalled.
Hey, do you go to church? No? You should come to our church. It's awesome. So that was my grandfather. He owned a trash business and a bricklaying business, entrepreneurial guy.
Okay.
Just how he rolled.
Not afraid of cold calls.
Yeah. So that church, by the time I had gotten back to Denver after college and all that, getting married, that church was, I don't know, 2,500, 3,000, something like that. It's a pretty big church now.
Yeah.
And so I came on staff there doing young adult ministries. We did a Sunday evening service for 20s and 30s. We'd all hang out, and then we'd do kind of our own type of service and then go over to Old Chicago and hang out, and it was phenomenal. And then that kind of exploded and led us into I ended up being the discipleship pastor, so I was kind of overseeing everything Monday through Saturday with a team, and we'd oversee men's ministry, women's ministry, all the things throughout the week. One of the interesting complications of a big church, which I also worked at Journey Church here in town, which is a big church too, is it's a lot of moving pieces. Yeah, it's not simple. Like, I think our budget there in Colorado was north of $3 million. We're running 3,500 people. We're running 40, 50 staff members plus a preschool. So you're running an organization.
A huge business.
Yeah, it's a big business. It's a nonprofit business, and it's the Jesus business, and it's awesome. And having to try to figure out, how do I run that well, and also remain a church and not become overly corporatized.
Right. But you've got the same liabilities
absolutely
as a major business.
So
what a variety of headaches you have to deal with on a daily basis.
A lot of moving pieces. And big churches, there's good big churches, there's bad big churches, there's good little churches, there's bad little churches. Just go to a good one. That's what I say. Like, you know what I mean? Like, some of them are healthy, some of them are not. I don't think there's I think you can go to a big church and they're making a big difference. They can raise, a big church, you can raise piles of money and help people in a minute, right? You can do things with volunteers that you could never do anywhere else. You can get, 20,000 volunteers from the community in your church to come in and pack, hundreds of thousands of meals for somebody overseas, right? Things that you just can't do with a small church.
Okay.
And honestly, big church, you can show up and be, you can be anonymous to a certain extent. So there's a comfortability around that. Like somebody who's just kicking around Jesus, or like they know Jesus is a cuss word and they got drugged to church on Sunday, like they can feel sort of anonymous and get there and check it out. And
there's not a gap if they're not there. There's not an assigned seat on the pew.
Correct.
Okay.
There's no pillows on pews. So whereas smaller churches, they're more intimate. Everybody knows each other, but you can't sneak in and out of a small church, right? And you don't have the same type of running a big organization, but you also have a small church with everybody knows everybody. Because the beauty of like small church and small community, right? Like Big Sky is the same way. There's this beauty of big community. Like Bozeman's not that big, but it's big for Montana. Yeah. And you can kind of get lost in the shuffle, and not everybody knows everybody. And there's some good to that, and there's some bad to that. And then same thing at Big Sky, right? Everybody knows everybody. So there's some really beautiful things about that. And then there's some other stuff that you go,
it can be a complication.
Totally.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's
a beautiful complication,
experience.
though. Yeah.
But from your perspective, running that smaller church,
Mm-hmm.
is there a struggle keeping it afloat, making sure that there's enough money coming in? Is that sort of the corollary to being in that giant church?
I don't think that changes much. Pastors think about money more than you would want to know. I mean, that's the way they are, like business owners. They're. I'll tell you a funny story. So we were raising funds for a project at Journey Church. So there's an expansion project probably underway in this upcoming year, and we're always trying to do stuff for the community and for the church. That's why it's called the Commons. It's not called the Journey Church. That building is for the community. Like the church built it, and
it gets used all the time.
It gets used all the time. The YMCA got, I think it's like a $1 a year lease for forever. I think in perpetuity. I mean, so there was a strong emphasis towards that. Anyway, we're doing a fundraiser, and we go to this banker, and the banker's talking to us about our numbers and how much money's coming in and all that, and he just goes, "How do you raise funds at the church?" And our executive pastor said, "Well, we have these buckets, and we pass them around, and people put money in." And he goes, Can I don't know if I can cuss on here. Can I cuss on here?
Go for it.
Oh, shit. Really?
Just had no idea.
He had no idea. It just blew his mind. It's like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And we rolled. We were laughing. But, I mean, that's what you're thinking about all the time, whether it's a big church or a little church. You have a little more, I think, less risk, honestly, in a small church. More risk in a big church, just like a big organization versus a small organization. It's a little easier to cut things and manage things when things are tight. When COVID hit at Journey, I mean, we dropped $200,000 in giving in 3 weeks. And we were like, oh, who's essential?
Yeah.
Right? Like it got real pretty fast. Everybody was experiencing that, but
sure.
Yeah, so
not a lot of government stimulus programs for the churches, though.
Yeah. No.
You guys weren't getting in on the PPP.
Yeah.
So clearly, you're not afraid to swear. You've got something of an unorthodox approach as a pastor.
Sorry, guys.
I don't. Listen, you're
to my humble shepherded group. I love you.
Does it get you in trouble sometimes? Your different.
Approach? Yeah. Well, it does. I think my superpower is that I'm super normal, and I think that's part of, I'm just relatable.
Yeah.
And because I was in the church a long time, and because I grew up in the church a long time, I have been around pastors a long time. And I've seen pastors do well and not do well. I've seen pastors put their preacher voice on and take their preacher voice off. I've seen pastors who were living a double life. This has become very, very public in the last 10 years or so, is like within all denominations, but in particular in the evangelical church where I'm kind of camped at, is there's a lot of guys that they were living a double life. And so a lot came out. And so I'd rather just live it right here in front of everybody and go like, this is where I'm at. I know you're at this place too. I got a little more education on this. I'm a little more of a specialist in this area. I like to think that I spend a significant amount of time thinking about these things and praying through these things and working through scripture. But I also think pastors are supposed to be with their people. And a lot of pastors, be careful I'm not throwing shade, because we're all on the same team, and I freaking love churches, like all churches, even crappy churches. I like them. Like, I just like them, man. And so they're the messy bride of Christ. That's what they are. They're like they're this messy, beautiful thing, And she's always been my mama, So that's the beauty of it. That being said, you go to seminary and some guys like love books, and I don't know if they love people.
Okay.
And then you have some that love people and don't really know how to navigate the educational side of it. And so trying to balance that out and just be a normal person in the midst of it is a unique experience. And being pastor is weird, man. It's weird. Like nobody else gets to stand on a podium and speak for God once a week. Like you know,
it seems like a lot of pressure. Honestly.
Yeah, it seems like a ripe place to grow an ego. That's for sure.
Sure.
So I think,
and the way people look up to you and confide in you, and sure.
Yeah. So the healthiest side of it is you see it as a heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
And you respond well to that responsibility, which I think we all should do. But it's a trip to get up there every Sunday. I was just talking about it with my elder board this past week because they were talking about, I asked them to pray. We take live prayer requests and they pray in our service, which is a little messy. And they don't always feel like they do it well. And I'm like, welcome to my world, dude. Like I get done saying some things from the pulpit and I'm like, I hope that landed well. I hope that was right. I probably need to apologize for some things. And I got work to do. I've been doing this for a long time.
But there's not a manual. There's not a recipe that you can follow necessarily.
No.
All right.
So,
well, I appreciate your straightforward approach and had nothing to hide.
Yeah, it's good.
I think that's a good way to live your life, right?
Yeah.
Less stress you have to deal with.
That's right.
Let's talk about when you sort of changed gears a little bit and started this Legacy Guides service.
Yeah.
What contributed to that? What took you a little bit, down a different path?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a statistic. There was a lot of burnout in 2020, 2021. I came down to Bozeman in 2019, fall of 2019. Spring of 2020, we were doing a campaign to raise like $6.5–7 million for the church. Literally filming, kind of like this, a little more cameras, a little more lights. Literally filming down at the Baxter Hotel. Bob, who's the lead pastor, me is the teaching pastor. We were doing this campaign fundraiser. It's going to be amazing. It was on Wednesday of March, 14 or 15.
Oh, that's when it got real.
Yeah, and then Friday, Bob and I are sitting together and like, I think we got to go online. So it shifted so fast.
Yep.
For some people, they worked less than they've ever worked. They took lots of walks and read a lot of books and
baked bread.
It was awesome, man. Yeah, a lot of sourdough.
Yeah. We all named our sourdough starter.
That's
for
right.
the first time in our lives.
That's right. And that was not the case for me, though. We worked 10 times harder. I've never worked that hard in my entire life. We have a full production crew at Journey. We had 7 live cameras because everybody got laid off, and the governor said we could still film with a certain amount of people in the place.
Sure.
So we were trying to make it the most real expression of like you being in the room possible. So we were working 10 times harder. We were doing a pregame show, and we were just. It was like being part of a TV network.
Virtual communion.
It was, it was 100%. Yeah, 100%. And we were running Bible studies on Facebook and Zoom, and there were some beautiful things about how we managed through all of that, but it came at a pretty high cost. And I didn't have a lot of relational equity in the church, and so that came at a high cost to me too. Like I didn't know a lot of people, and a lot of people didn't know me. I was 6 months in. And so
in terms of that face-to-face.
Yeah. And everybody was asking really hard questions, right? Like some people thought we came back too fast. Some people thought we didn't come back fast enough. Some people thought we shouldn't wear masks. Some people thought we should. Some people still think we should. We had people who thought we should pass the buckets again. And some of us were like, we're never passing those buckets ever again.
Yeah.
My
folks are in a little Episcopalian church in Alabama, central Alabama, and there was a huge schism. Like it tore their little congregation of 40 people apart. I can't imagine when you're dealing with 1,000 people.
Yeah, and in a non-denominational church where you, on purpose, have a wide swath of people.
Yeah.
So opinions galore. And so we felt the brunt of that as a pastoral staff. And I think between that and being worked so hard, having several times where I'm like, I have to go look for another job. Like, we're not going to pay the bills, things like that. Pressure reveals cracks, and it revealed a bunch of cracks in my own life and in my own soul. And so I got to the point where I was sitting backstage one Sunday morning, and I was about to go preach to like 800 people or whatever in 2021. And I'm like, that door looks really nice to walk out of. And I legitimately thought, I'm going to walk out that door. I'm just going to blow this thing up, dude.
Pastor Houdini.
Yeah. And I didn't think anything of it. Then 2 weeks later, same thing happened. And I started walking toward the door, and I'm like, oh, this is bad. This is no good. So needless to say, both times I went back out and preached a sermon. But the second time I went to my wife and I told her, hey, this is bad. She already knew. So I ended up with a life planner, Lance Witt, who is out of Colorado Springs, Castle Rock area. Lance was a pastor at Saddleback Church, was a giant church down in Southern California with Rick Warren, Purpose-Driven Life. It's like one of the best sellers in the last 50 years. It's an incredible book. So he worked with Rick, and then he started a ministry called Replenish that helps with burned out pastors, burned out Christian leaders.
Okay.
And so I spent a couple days with Lance. And
it's a very common phenomenon.
Yeah.
What does that say about your business?
It says some things. It does say some things. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I also think it says some things positive in terms of that we want to take care of our pastors, because we'll get into this in a second, but there's lots of people that experience burnout but don't know where to turn to.
Yeah.
They just have to figure it out and maybe go talk to a counselor, and that's a good step, but there's a lot of other things that their work doesn't go, oh, let's send you to a life planner. You know what I mean? So I think the positive side is that the church said, hey, let's get you over to somebody who can help you, right? Mm-hmm. So we went over there, Lori and I, for a couple days, spent a couple days with Lance, and he worked me through a life plan, which he's a second-generation life planner. So there's the Patterson Life Planning Center out of Fort Collins. They've been doing this for like 50 years, thousands of people. It's basically a business plan for your life. Where have you been? Where are you? And then where do you want to go, right? And these are super important questions, and they put exercises and assessments to that so that you can chart the path. You can make a plan, and you can say, this is where I want to be 5 to 7 years from now. These are the goals. This is what I see my life. These are my gifts. These are my abilities. These are my values. This is a mission statement that I've written. And so over the course of a couple of days, you sort of put your whole life together, and you say, okay, this is where I want to go. And it was incredibly helpful for me. I came back with renewed sense of vision.
Is this on a retreat? Where are you staying when
at
you're
his
doing
house,
this?
in his basement?
Yep. Oh, all right.
Yeah, Lance has got this cool little basement, and he's got a little bedroom, and he's got his like strategic operations planning room that is just clean and ready, and he just does life plans down there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was good. I was really tired by the end of it. 9 to 5 the first day, 9 to 3 the next day, and we just hammered through.
Just difficult question after difficult question.
Yeah. What do you want to be when you grow up? That kind of thing.
Oh.
And then you have to answer it. You can't just say pass, right? So communications, I'm going to go into communications. You can't do that. So,
and did you take this model basically and apply it to outdoorsy stuff?
Yeah, so Lance was coaching me over the course of a couple months after that. It's pretty common, like you get life coaching and then, get through the plan and some extra coaching. And this idea started percolating, and my family actually helped me even think about how to figure this out. My son actually, we were coming up with names, and I love the word legacy because it's not I think sometimes we think of it as like an over ethereal word. It's like this big word, like you leave a legacy, but a legacy is it's just a story that other people tell, right? That's what your legacy is. Can be good, can be bad. People all have a legacy. It just depends on what it's going to be. And so, our whole family kind of got in.
Before we get too far away from that, I do want to ask you, so we live in an area
Yeah.
where people live for the moment so much, right? Big Sky, Bozeman, West Yellowstone, Livingston, wherever. People, it's powder day. I'm dropping everything. I'm going to go ski, right?
Yeah.
It's not about what is left behind. It's not about thinking 5 years down the path. Is that tough to deal with the type of people who are here, who are living right now?
That's a great question. That's a phenomenal question. I think that I'll draw from the well of pastoral, which is, there's a writer in the book of Ecclesiastes that says eternity is written on our hearts. So Ecclesiastes is a book of wisdom, and I don't think there's anybody out there, even though they live for the moment, that deep down inside isn't thinking about the big picture of life. It may be underneath the thing, under the thing, under the thing. And that's probably...
But it's got to wait until this hatch is over because
100%.
I got to get a line in the water.
100%. And I think I talk about this a lot, is that in itself is a pursuit of legacy. The moment to moment, you're just saying that's what my legacy is.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I just want my legacy to be that I lived for the moment. That's not a bad legacy, actually, right? To be present to the moment, that's a phenomenal legacy if we were all present to the moment. I will say the tough thing, and this is both life planning and church, is that how many hatches are enough? How many powder days are enough? How many, like, how much of that do you need in your life? That's where I run into actually what I would say easy clientele, because they've got it all. Like, some of my clients are ballers. They've got it all.
They're set up.
Yeah. And they wake up one day and go, and it usually didn't happen young. It usually happens a little older in life, and they go, what am I doing? You know? Like, I've got millions of dollars, multiple houses. I've got everything that I want worldly. I can go wherever I want. But my family's not great. My marriage is okay. And I'm like, life is good, but it's definitely not great. And so then that's the moment that is kind of magical. If I can get somebody on a trip and into a life plan in that moment, now we've got something, right? If you're still living for the moment, get after it. Like, get after it. I love that, you know?
Yeah. But sometimes you wake up and you go, it's not enough.
Well, you know,
okay.
Some guys get to their last breath and go, was that enough? So we try to think about it a little earlier than that.
What is it about outdoors and hunting and fishing that you think makes the process of life coaching more accessible and a better experience?
Well, I think that's part of the magic of living here, right? Is that people yearn for connection with nature. There's something I can't even put my finger on this. I need some scientists to help me with this, to be honest with you, because there's something I believe scientifically around standing in water and waving a stick. There's something around hiking the mountains or skiing down frozen water, or then floating down that same frozen water on a river. There's something about that speaks to something deeper in us, and it just tends to fast forward the conversation.
Like, there's something primal that we're tapping into.
That's a great word. That's a great word. There's something very primal about that. And that's the additive that I've taken from Lance's program and said, I'm going to add adventure to this. So we're going to life plan, but we're going to do that with a backdrop of hiking and hunting and fishing and skiing and whatever fills your tank. Let's go do that. Let's go live in that moment. And then let's have some really pointed conversations around, where are things working? Where aren't things working? Where do you want things to get better? What do you want people to say at your funeral?
Yeah. What I will say is that the experiences that I've had out in nature, whether that's like, I just hiked, 7 miles today and I did a 5,000 foot climb. By the end of that day, there is a clarity that you get.
That's right.
Sitting around, finally getting in a chair and having like the best just sit of your life.
Yep.
Right. So I get it.
Yeah.
I get how that would bring you some peace, and you get to cut through all the junk, the noise.
Yeah.
And you can focus on
That's
you a little bit.
That's a great statement. Cut through the noise. We just live in a very noisy age.
Yeah.
Probably one of the noisiest ages of all time. You're just buzzing and beeping, and
everything wants your attention.
Your attention is built for your attention.
Yeah.
So, Stolen Focus Show on Hari. I recommend that book all the time. Like, there's lots of things vying for our attention, stealing our attention, stealing our focus. And we get these moments where we literally go get off grid, no cell service, up on top of a mountain, and we're like, suddenly I have perspective. And you're like, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Wait, you can't get to me.
That's right.
Where I am now. I've taken great lengths to get away from you. Give me a couple of stories, of highlights from your experiences leading people on these.
So just
success stories.
Yeah,
don't tell me about
the car wreck. Okay. Yeah. So I just finished up my 48th life plan last week.
Wow.
In 2 years. So I started this in 2022.
Okay.
Been averaging about 2-ish a month, which has been a lot, especially now stepping back into church work in Big Sky.
Because these are multi-day
They are
experiences?
Yeah,
Okay.
multi-day experiences. Some of the fun things we've done, I took a guy steelheading in Idaho last February, and he'd never fished. He'd never casted a fly rod, and we had him a spey rod, which is really hard to cast. And it was actually pretty easy to teach him because he didn't know better. He didn't have any bad habits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he just did. And my buddy's a guide down there, and so my buddy Aaron Hale, Everset Outfitters, he's stud. Anyway, he taught this guy how to cast, and within the first 3 hours of the day, he caught a wild run steelhead that had swammed, whatever.
It was swimming.
500 miles from the ocean, right? We're 500 miles inland on the clear water, and he catches this fish 500 miles inland, and I'm like, dude, that fish swam 500 miles, and you caught it. This is epic.
It's a tired
fish.
It's
like almost a 40-inch fish. It's like I have this picture. It's
Good
this
Lord.
giant fish. He's holding by the tail, and I'm like, glee, joy in my face. And we released that fish, and that was just an absolutely incredible. I was on a trip this past week. We were hunting, and one morning we were sitting there, and we saw some whitetails walk out. We had a couple elk on the hill. We had a sow and a cub, and we didn't even end up shooting anything. Like, it was just, that's just what you wake up for in the morning, right? So those are some of the experiences that we have. A lot of times we just sit around in cabins talking about life. Some of the cool things that have happened in their lives, I will say, all of my guys are becoming better husbands, fathers, business owners, and we can look at it and mark it. Because I was doing some coaching with a client yesterday, and when he came on the trip, one of the things that we do is, how's your soul battery? So we talk about like 5 or 6 things that add up to you being on full rather than you being on empty. It's just a super simple exercise you can keep going back to. And we pulled that out yesterday, and it's been a couple months since his trip, and everything in it was on yellow when we originally took the trip. And then he did a self-assessment yesterday, and 4 out of 6 were on green. And their health things are like, is he eating well? Is he sleeping well? Is he taking time to date his wife? It's like, these are the things that build him up. And and we had this kind of aha moment where we go, you're not where you were. That's pretty awesome.
It's working.
Yeah. He launched his own business, his own LLC in the last 2-3 months. I mean, very common. It's weirdly common. I've had guys, sell businesses to other guys from the company. Like one guy who's like, I need to sell this business. And one guy who's like, a couple weeks later, I need to buy a business. I'm like, you guys should probably chat. Like, that'd be cool. Right.
Little matchmaker.
Yeah. It's, and connecting them together and seeing kind of what happens has been really the coolest part of it.
The battery thing is a great segue to talk about as we enter New Year.
Yeah.
What are, if people are falling short of going on these legacy guide life coaching opportunities, how can we just view this New Year as an opportunity to set goals, to attain goals, to put us on a better path?
Yeah, I like that. Because a good amount of what we do is goal setting. And I like to reverse engineer around those things on our trips. So one of the exercises we do is we say, hey, pick a point in time 5 to 7 years from now, and let's pretend we're at your birthday. And you're going to explain to me what life looks like. And you're going to use 4 quadrants. Your personal quadrant of life, who you are, body, mind, soul, you. Your relational quadrant of who you are, relationships with your spouse, with your kids, with your friends, relationships, your vocational work, how's that working? What does that look like? And then community, local, global, like the impact you're having in life. And we can kind of look at all 4 of those quadrants and go, okay, what do you want life to look like personally? What do you want life to look like relationally? What do you want life to look like vocationally? And what do you want life to look like in your generosity, giving back to the community, right? So we look at it at probably, I'll call it a 30,000 foot view. And this is a helpful tip. I think elevation is important. So we start with 30,000 feet, like way up here. Like 5 years from now, I want to be in fighting shape, and I want to be, hiking the mountains still, and I want to be madly in love with my wife after 25 years of marriage, and I want my kids to love me and my business to be growing. These are like 30,000 foot things, right?
Yep.
And they're this thin line between aspirational and achievable, right? We're always pushing toward aspirational while it's still being achievable. Too achievable, you're already doing it. Too aspirational, pipe dream.
Yeah.
So we're pushing towards aspirational. We're starting at 30,000 feet. We get that down on paper, which for folks, you could just go, what's one personal goal? What's one relational goal? What's one vocational goal? And what's one community goal? You just break it down to 4 goals, and they can be 30,000 feet. And then you reverse engineer. So you go, what's that going to take, right? Because goals aren't good if they're just 30,000 foot. Like, we need to actually set goals that are incremental. I'm stealing a lot from James Clear, Atomic Habits here. You need to set incremental things, right?
Like, what does it look like after 6 months?
Even
less than that.
Even smaller than that.
Okay.
If we're going like a 1 year goals, right? Let's say I want to, everybody does this in the new year. I want to lose some weight. Okay, great. That's great. I want to be healthier by the end of the year. Cool. Let's talk about how you're going to be healthier at the end of the year. So you're going to go to the gym 3 times a week, and on the other 2 days of the weekday, you're going to take a walk. You'll take Saturday and Sunday off. That's fine. But 5 days a week, you're going to be doing some exercise. Like, if you actually do that, then you're going to be healthier. Like, those results will take care of themselves. Oftentimes we just look at the thing we want and we make that the lead measure. This is 4 disciplines of execution. Like, so we look at the big things and we say, that's the lead measure. That's not the lead measure. That's just a lag measure. That's where you want to get. You need to look at the lead measures and say, okay, if I do 3 times a week working out and I walk twice a week, that's going to get me to being healthier, right? And I'll probably hit whatever goals I want in terms of losing whatever weight I want. And if not, well, then I just got to move that around a little bit, do a little more work, right? I got to eat a little better. I got to add something else habit-wise to that to get to that end goal. So you've got to...
Nick Saban would say you want to be process-based, not result-based.
That's right. That's right. Roll Tide. All right.
Roll Tide now.
Oh, that's funny. And so, exactly, but that's true. That's why he's kind of the goat, dude. So, and then I would say the other 2 things that I would add to that is you really need to make sure that you have a tank to draw from. And you really need to make sure you have people who are going to help you get there. These are the two things I've learned most clearly in my trips and in my coaching and in my pastoring, is that we will run ourselves ragged trying to achieve goals that in the end maybe fall short, and we won't take care of like our soul, like the deep parts of who we are. That's why I do that soul health cycle assessment to say how healthy is your soul right now, because if you don't have something to draw from, you're not going to be good for your spouse, you're not going to be good for your kids, for your work, you're not going to attain your goals. So you've got to stay healthy, and you've got to have support in that. You got to have support in that. Once again, James Clear. I mean, if you have people who are checking in with you and saying, hey, how are you doing on that working out 3 days a week and walking twice a week? If you have that accountability and you actually invite that into your life, or even better, you have somebody who says, I'll work out with you 3 times a week and I'll walk with you twice a week, you guys are going to achieve your goals together. So none of this is brand new. Like, we have so many books. There's so many resources on this, right?
It sounds simple, but it's not easy.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
And it sounds like you have to set yourself up for success. Is basically a takeaway. I have kept you longer than I said I would. Before I let you go, I have to play a game with you. It's obligatory on the podcast.
Okay.
It's our DMG, our Dumb Marmot game. And this one's called Going on a Life Coach.
Okay.
It's based on the children's book Going on a Bear Hunt.
Okay.
But we are going to identify and overcome some typical adversities in life.
Okay.
All right. I do have to, every now and then, it just terrifies me that this is the only thing keeping it recording. Like, what if it just stops one time? I don't know. I live in constant fear.
Do you want to talk about that?
Here we go. Going on a life coach. I'm going to basically read the children's book. And then when we get to the life adversity, you have to quickly and succinctly tell me how we're going to overcome it.
Say splish, splash, splish, splash.
Kind of,
I know this book.
I bet you do.
I know this book.
All right, here we go. We're going on a bear hunt.
Okay.
We're going to find our purpose. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Uh-oh, job loss. Quick, scary job loss. We can't go over it. We can't go over it. We've got to
talk to our closest people who have connections of other people that we need to talk to for our next opportunity.
Okay. Just like private networking.
Yeah, Indeed sucks, dude.
Don't turn to the internet.
Talk to your people, man. Talk to your people.
All right, that's good. Next one. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to find our purpose. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Uh-oh, divorce. A nasty, bitter divorce. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to.
You got to go through it. So, divorce and other hard losses in life require grief. And you literally can't go over or under grief. You need to go through grief. So you need to take the time to go through grief. You need to have people who you trust around you who will grieve with you and not give you a bunch of dumb answers. You need to go talk to a counselor. And you need to pay really, really close attention to mind, body, soul, and how you're actually doing on the inside.
No easy answer.
No.
Yeah.
Not for that one.
All right. My father's a divorce mediator.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the family business.
Yeah, I get it. Okay. All right. I love it.
I get it. And I think you're spot on with that. All right. Last one. We're going on a bear hunt.
Okay.
We're going to find our purpose. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Uh-oh. Midlife crisis. Pronounced obvious midlife crisis. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to
come talk to Brian Van Eps.
Come talk to Brian Van Eps.
You just set that up, man.
Is that sort of the perfect, reason to go through a legacy guide trip?
Yeah, it's one of. I mean, I have a couple different trips that I categorize. Some of my trips feel like we're digging a guy out of a hole, because we're at midlife and it's rough and we need to figure out what's going on, and are we quitting the job? Are we not quitting the job?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
It's a real thing.
Yep. Some of my trips are good to great trips where they're doing good, but they want great. And so those are very different trips, what we talk about, how we run those trips. Some we're digging them out. Some of them we're going good, great. I think everybody needs a life plan. And I'm not saying that I can't run that many trips. Like I don't care who you go on a life planning trip with. And I don't even care if you try to figure out how to do it on your own. The results that I've seen for the guys that I'm working with and for myself in terms of putting down on paper what you want out of life are phenomenal, and everybody should do it. So shouldn't have to be just on a midlife crisis, but don't buy a boat.
I love that. Thank you for playing We're Going on a Life Coach with me, and thank you for joining me at my dining table here at the Christmas setting. Beautifully done. And Happy New Year to all of you guys, and I hope all of your new goals come true.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Brian.
That's it.